I was married for 7 years to the woman I thought I'd grow old with. She said we were broke, but I was building us something real behind the scenes. I came home with the biggest surprise of her life and caught her in our bed with the man she called just a friend.
My name is Carter Doyle. I'm 44 years old. For most of my adult life, I worked as a warehouse coordinator, living paycheck to paycheck in a 2-bedroom rental in Wichita Falls, Texas. My wife, Lauren, and I had been married 12 years. She was beautiful, practical, and always a little restless. We'd never had much, but we had just enough. Or so I thought. The turning point came quietly. It wasn't some dramatic shift, no lottery ticket or inheritance. It was Tesla, and then Nvidia, and then something called Genova Biotech. Stocks. I'd studied them quietly for years, mostly as a hobby, my guilty pleasure late at night after Lauren went to bed. But then I got good. Really good. 3 years ago, I put every cent of our $28,000 in savings into a handful of long-shot companies that I believed in. One by one, they started exploding. First a double, then a tenfold, then another. I'd reinvest, diversify. Then I started using options carefully, methodically, like I trained myself to do. Within 18 months, we were at $750,000. But I didn't tell Lauren. Not yet. It wasn't some big strategy. It was fear. Fear of what would happen to us if the money changed things. She'd always hated when I got obsessed with numbers instead of real life. We had different ideas of success. For me, it was building a future brick by brick. For her, it was going to places like Bellissimo, the fancy downtown steakhouse with valet parking and crystal glassware, because that's where real people with money went. She talked about that place for years. Never got to go. Too expensive, I'd always say. Someday when we can breathe easier. When I got her flowers, she'd say, imagine how good they'd look on a Bellissimo table. I worked 3 jobs for a decade while she worked one and came home complaining about how this life wasn't what she signed up for. Still, I stayed. I tried. And then one day, that someday came. When my portfolio hit $4.2 million after a sudden biotech rally, I took the day off. I went to the bank, set up the new accounts, printed out a statement just to feel the weight of the number. I bought a suit, real Italian leather shoes. And I made a reservation at Bellissimo for 7 p.m. I came home at 5:45 to surprise her. The front door wasn't locked. Music played low from the bedroom, a playlist Lauren usually turned on when she was getting ready for something special. I smiled. Thought maybe she'd caught on somehow, maybe she had plans for me too. Then I opened the bedroom door. And there he was. Shirtless. Laughing. The man she'd been obsessed with for months. Not a celebrity. Not a fantasy. Just Travis Montero, the owner of Bellissimo. He had that look about him, spray tan, white veneers, Rolex on his wrist, body built more in a surgeon's office than a gym. The kind of man who didn't do small talk with people like me. The kind of man who casually touched Lauren's wrist once at an event and never left her mind after that. My wife was in our bed. With him. Half-dressed, half-giggling, her legs under his cologne thick in the air like gasoline. She gasped. He didn't. Oh, he said, like I was an unexpected delivery guy. This a bad time? I didn't speak. Didn't yell. Just dropped the reservation card on the floor. The reservation I made at his restaurant for her. Table I'd called about personally, with a private booth and wine already selected. Lauren looked at it, then looked away. She didn't chase me. He didn't apologize. And I didn't lose my temper. But I should have. That night I walked the neighborhood for hours, not knowing where to go. Not back there. Not to my parents, they were gone. No siblings. No friends close enough to explain this to. Just me, a wrinkled suit, and a portfolio that now meant absolutely nothing. Until it started to mean something again. Because that's when the anger set in, not like a fire, but like ice. Slow. Spreading. Precise. I didn't want revenge just to make them hurt. I wanted to build something smarter, longer, and louder than a punch or a broken window. They wanted wealth. Image. Applause. Fine. I'd give them all 3. But only long enough to rip it out of their hands when they needed it most. That night, I booked a table at Bellissimo. Alone. And over a dry-aged ribeye, I made a plan. I sat alone at that booth in Bellissimo. The one tucked near the window where the candles made everyone's skin look smoother, richer. It was the same booth Lauren had once pointed at in a magazine article about top 10 tables in Texas. The table she used to say she'd give anything to sit at. The maitre d' had to do a double take. I didn't belong here, at least not in their eyes. I still had warehouse calluses on my hands, and the suit, while new, fit like someone trying to wear wealth like a costume. But I had money. And in places like this, that's all that mattered. Travis wasn't there that night. A waiter told me he'd flown to Scottsdale for a restorative spa retreat. Probably with my wife. The thought turned my stomach, but it also sharpened my resolve. That dinner wasn't about indulging myself. It was reconnaissance. The food, the waitstaff, the billing system, even the security cameras, I took mental notes like I was prepping for a mission. Because that's exactly what I was doing. I didn't go home that night. I checked into a corporate hotel under a different name. Paid in cash. For a week, I went silent. Lauren texted me once, "We need to talk." I didn't respond. She didn't try again. Instead, I started constructing what I knew best, a system. I built my fortune from understanding patterns, numbers, probabilities, psychology. People think Wall Street is about guts. It's not. It's about patterns. And people like Travis and Lauren? They're predictable. I knew exactly where this was going. She'd keep him interested with seduction and ego stroking. He'd show her off like an upgrade. They'd post curated pictures in wine bars and buy poolside cabanas. But they'd never trust each other. That's the thing about cheaters. They're always looking over their shoulder. So I made sure they had plenty to see. Step 1, the whisper. I created a fake Instagram account. Middle-aged man. Moderate following. Photos of gourmet food and luxury dining experiences. A food critic, I claimed. Someone who reviewed not just food, but hospitality, ethics, and ownership history. The first post, when you dig beneath the menu at Bellissimo, the real flavor might turn your stomach. No accusations. Just ambiguity. Enough to plant a seed. Step 2, the investor. I knew Bellissimo had financial backers. Travis didn't own it outright. He had a 40% stake, most of it borrowed. Public records confirmed that. Through a shell company, I contacted one of those investors and offered a buyout of his stake at a 20% premium. The man was getting older. He bit. Suddenly, I owned 15% of the restaurant my wife betrayed me for. Still not enough to make noise, but enough to start watching from the inside. Step 3, the fracture. Travis loved attention. He'd do anything for it. So I fed his ego. Fake press inquiries. Invitations to speak at food summits. One of my LLCs sponsored a wine pairing event and paid him $10,000 to attend and speak. He thought it was a rising brand. It wasn't. It was just a shell with a purpose, to make him visible. The higher he climbed, the louder the fall would be. Meanwhile, Lauren? She moved into a rental. Still in Wichita Falls. That surprised me. I figured she'd head west with Travis. But no, she wanted to play house. I guess she believed his promises. Or maybe she thought I'd fade away like all the quiet men do. She sent one more text. "We didn't mean for it to happen. But we're happy now. Please respect that." I didn't reply. But I saved it. Like a receipt. By the time month 2 rolled around, Bellissimo was being watched. The online buzz I manufactured had triggered a quiet food safety inspection. The kitchen passed, but barely. Enough to raise Travis's stress levels. At a board meeting, he threw a tantrum in front of 2 minority owners, both of whom I'd already spoken to anonymously. Told them about discrepancies in payroll records. Asked if they'd ever looked into how Travis handled gratuities and supplier kickbacks. They hadn't. But they would. Travis didn't know it yet, but the noose was tightening. And Lauren? She'd applied for a marketing job with one of my smaller portfolio companies. She didn't realize I was the owner. Her application was flagged immediately. I instructed the HR rep to schedule an interview and cancel it an hour before. Reason? Internal restructuring. Just like the one she did on my marriage. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. But now the trap had been built. The players were where they needed to be. And Act 1 was complete. All I needed now was a stage for the reveal. 3 months after walking out of my own house without a single word, I received an envelope with gold trim and embossed lettering. Inside, a card. "You are cordially invited to Bellissimo's 5-year anniversary gala." Lauren had handwritten a note on the back. "No hard feelings. Life happens. Come see what you helped me find." She signed it Lauren and Travis like they were a couple hosting a backyard barbecue instead of flaunting a betrayal on company letterhead. I sat with that card for an hour. Read it over and over. Memorized the ridges in the ink. It was never meant as a gesture of peace. It was a victory lap. But that was fine. Because I'd already prepared a finish line of my own. Travis didn't know that his food empire had termites. 6 weeks earlier, I'd used a dummy business, Market Edge Solutions, to pose as a supplier. We offered high-end olive oils and truffle products at a reduced price. What we actually sent were diluted, industrial-grade oils with forged Italian certifications. Legally safe, but far below Bellissimo's standards. He signed the deal without reading the fine print. Why? Because he was distracted. Lauren. The press. And the whispers. Whispers I kept feeding. A former dishwasher anonymously contacted the local food blogger scene saying he'd seen rats in the kitchen. Nothing ever confirmed, but in the court of public opinion that didn't matter. Travis started getting paranoid. Security cameras in the supply closet. Staff turnover. A 2.3 drop in Yelp score. And yet they still invited me. Because people like Travis need the illusion of control. The night of the gala, I wore a charcoal gray suit, no tie. Clean shave, polished shoes. Looked just enough like money to blend in, not so much to stand out. Bellissimo's dining room had been turned into a masquerade ball. Everyone wore masks, gold, black, crimson. Lauren always loved theatrics. Travis was in his element. Slapping backs, pouring wine, gesturing like a Roman senator in a TikTok apron. I stayed at the bar. Ordered a bourbon. Waited. At 8:37 p.m. one of the restaurant's investors, an old man named Cohen, walked to the center of the room and clinked his glass. Tonight, he said, we toast 5 years of culinary excellence and to Travis Bolland, the man behind the magic. There was polite applause. Travis took the mic. That's very kind, Saul. But I didn't do it alone. Lauren has been my partner, my muse, and the reason we've created something special. We're launching a second location next month, and none of it would have been possible without.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
I took out my phone and tapped the screen. The screen behind him, which had been playing a silent slideshow of Bellissimo's greatest hits, sputtered. Then switched to a spreadsheet. Then another. Supplier invoices. Ingredient discrepancies. Duplicate payments. A pause. Then video footage. Travis in the wine cellar counting out cash to a man in a hoodie. The audio was grainy, but the words were unmistakable. This covers the rebranding. I don't want it traceable. Gasps. Lauren turned to him. What is this? He blinked. What the hell is going on? I finished my drink. Walked calmly across the floor. Travis's jaw dropped. Nathan? Lauren whispered. I didn't look at her. I spoke directly into the mic. Funny thing about numbers. They don't lie. Especially not when you hide them badly. Security moved toward me, but Cohen raised a hand. Let him finish. So I did. I built systems to trace fraud. Not just on Wall Street, but in life. Travis skimmed supplier contracts. Laundered petty cash. Used ghost employees to write off payroll taxes. And did it all thinking nobody would notice? Until someone did. Lauren tried to speak. Nathan, this is... Don't. I looked at her finally. You said you found something better. You were wrong. You found someone worse. And then I left. Just like that. Outside, the air felt cool and clean. The story made headlines. Not mine, Travis's. Local business owner under investigation for fraud, tax evasion, and financial misconduct. Within 2 weeks, Bellissimo closed its doors. Lauren lost her job. And her Instagram following. She tried to reach out. But I was done speaking. I didn't need to scream to get revenge. I just had to wait. Watch. And understand one simple truth. Loyalty is a currency. And she spent it all. After the gala, I didn't celebrate. No drinks. No phone calls. No victory laps. I just went home, took off my jacket, and sat on the edge of my bed. Not because I was tired, but because I wasn't. Revenge doesn't bring closure. It brings silence. Sometimes that's enough. Travis was arrested 2 days later. Turns out once Cohen, the investor, saw the evidence, he handed everything straight to the IRS and state fraud investigators. I didn't even need to file a formal complaint. When you lay the truth bare in a room full of rich men, they do the rest for you. Bellissimo's accounts were frozen. Their second location never opened. Staff wages went unpaid. Vendors pulled out. Lauren vanished from social media for almost a week. Then reappeared with a vague post about new beginnings and focusing on healing. That was the same day local news aired a segment titled Restaurant Empire Collapses in Wake of Fraud Allegations. I didn't watch it. I didn't need to. Instead, I started packing up my apartment. A 2-bedroom downtown rental I never liked but kept out of habit. I'd stayed in the same spot because she knew the address. Because part of me thought, stupidly, she might come back with an apology or at least an explanation. But I didn't need one anymore. 3 weeks later, I flew to Seattle. Not for a job. Not for escape. I bought a small building there, old auto shop on the edge of Capitol Hill. Had no idea what I was going to do with it yet. But it was mine. It had oil stains on the floor, a squeaky garage door, and a rooftop view of the skyline that made everything else seem manageable. I named it the Ledger. Not for accounting. For memory. Every screw, every dent, every moment inside it would be part of something honest. Lauren tried one more time to reach me. A letter this time. Handwritten. No return address. Said she never meant to hurt me, that things just happened, that she missed the person I used to be. I burned the letter in a coffee can behind the ledger. Because the person I used to be died the night I walked into my bedroom and found her tangled up with a man who thought handmade pasta made him untouchable. The man I am now doesn't beg. He builds. He tracks. He finishes things. I didn't follow Travis's trial. Didn't need to. Last I heard, he took a plea deal. Tax fraud. Misrepresentation of assets. 3 years, minimum security. He'll probably get out in 18 months. I don't care. Because even if he walks out tomorrow, he'll walk out with nothing. His investors are suing him for damages. His reputation is shot. And every time someone Googles his name, they'll see the story. The spreadsheet. The video. That's permanent. As for Lauren, I assume she's out there somewhere. Dating someone new. Trying to spin the story. I don't keep tabs. Not anymore. Revenge wasn't about breaking her. It was about taking back what she tried to take from me. Dignity. Control. Silence. The ledger turned into something real. A community workspace for small business owners. Mechanics. Bakers. Tinkerers. People who'd been shut out of fancy kitchens and glass offices. People like me. I don't run it for profit. I run it because I know what it's like to lose everything and still wake up wanting to build. And because sometimes the best way to win isn't to scream. It's to outlast. There's a funny kind of silence that settles over you once the storm's passed. Not peace. Not relief. Just emptiness. I thought about Lauren more than I cared to admit. Not because I missed her, I didn't. Not really. What haunted me was the thought of how easily she'd done it. The switch. The betrayal. How someone could fake love for 5 whole years and still look you in the eye while doing it. I remember the night we celebrated our 3rd anniversary. She'd made steak, burned the edges, but still tried and lit candles even though it was hot as hell in that tiny apartment. I'd bought her a necklace. Small. Nothing flashy. She cried when she opened it. Were those tears real? Or had she been acting even then? That was the question that stayed with me. Not, why did she cheat? Not even, was it my fault? Just, when did the lie begin? I threw myself into the ledger. It became a kind of therapy I didn't have to talk through. I sanded the floors myself. Rewired the old fuse box. Painted over the walls one brush stroke at a time. By the time it opened in April, I'd put nearly 200 hours into it. Word spread faster than I expected. A retired welder named Don brought his grandson by to restore a '76 Harley. A woman named Arlene rented the side garage to rebuild salvaged stoves and ovens, fixing them for single moms who couldn't afford new ones. It became a magnet for second chances. For people who'd been kicked down and were still stubborn enough to stand back up. One night, Don brought me a 6-pack and asked, "You ever gonna tell us what brought you here?" I looked him in the eye and said, "A woman taught me everything I didn't want to become." He didn't ask again. Didn't need to. But life doesn't stay quiet. Not forever. 3 months after opening the ledger, I got a message on Facebook. Private account. No profile picture. But the name said Jules. That was Travis's sister. We'd met once. Back when I was still with Lauren and they invited us to some overpriced food truck festival in Napa. She seemed quiet. Grounded. The message was simple. Can I talk to you about Travis? Not to defend him. Just to make something right. I waited a full day before answering. Not out of anger, just caution. But I replied. We met at a coffee shop off Broadway. Public, neutral. She was nervous. Said she'd cut off her brother after the scandal. That she'd just recently found out about the lawsuit settlements and how much damage he'd caused. She apologized. Not on his behalf, on hers. For not saying anything sooner. But then she pulled something out of her bag. A check. $38,000. I found this in my mom's safety deposit box. Travis hid it there. It was never declared in court. Probably his backup plan. But it was written from Bellissimo's business account, fraud money. He doesn't get to keep it. I stared at the check for a long moment. Why give it to me? I asked. Because according to everything I've read, you're the only one who didn't sue him. You never went after a cent. That tells me you deserve this more than anyone. I didn't deposit the check. Not right away. I went home, placed it on the counter, and stared at it for 3 straight nights. By the 4th night, I had a plan. I cashed it through a legal fund, had it routed into a donation trust under a separate LLC. Then I created a new wing inside the ledger. It's called the Fireproof Fund. No branding. No PR push. Just quiet assistance for people who get blindsided by betrayal, financial or otherwise. A guy who got fired after blowing the whistle on company fraud? He got $5,000 to keep his mortgage current. A young woman whose landlord kept her deposit and disappeared? We covered her first and last month's rent in her new place. None of them knew where the money came from. That's how I wanted it. Because I didn't need Travis's dirty money. But I could turn it into something clean. Into justice. People say forgiveness is freedom. I disagree. Clarity is freedom. The moment I stopped asking why, the chains came off. The moment I stopped wishing Lauren had been someone else, I finally got to be myself again. A year to the day after I found Lauren in bed with Travis, I stood outside the ledger's front doors with my hands in my jacket pockets and watched the sunrise break over the trees. There were no speeches, no headlines, no grand unveilings. Just a slow line of regulars, welders, mechanics, a few retirees walking in to start their day. Inside, the tools buzzed. The air carried the scent of oil and sawdust. And somewhere in the back, Don was already arguing with Arlene about whether or not a belt sander could be used on cast iron. The shop had become more than a second chance. It was a sanctuary. A place where broken things didn't get thrown out, they got restored. And so had I. Lauren never came back to apologize. I heard she moved to Portland. Opened a small bakery with someone new. A yoga instructor, last I heard. Travis, on the other hand, didn't get so lucky. His civil cases kept piling up. Lawsuits from vendors, investors, even a former employee who alleged fraud so deep the DA got involved. I didn't need to lift a finger. He was dismantling his empire just by trying to save it. Turns out you can't build something solid on lies. Eventually, the weight brings the whole damn thing down. Last I checked, Bellissimo was down to 1 location. Yelp reviews described it as haunted by bad decisions. But there's one thing I did do. I bought the land across from his last operating restaurant. Didn't build a rival business. Didn't slap a billboard there. Just bought it. Then I installed a steel bench. Faced directly at the front door of Bellissimo. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. I sit there. Coffee in hand. No words. No signs. Just presence. And every Thursday, Travis looks through the front glass and sees me. I want him to know that I'm not angry anymore. I'm better. Stronger. And I didn't need to destroy him to win, I just had to outlive the lie he told. You know, I used to think revenge meant rage. Fire. Broken windows and raised voices. But now I know better. Revenge is restoration. It's building something solid while the person who broke you is still sweeping up shards. It's living well, loudly, and in full color while they fade into grayscale regret. The Fireproof Fund continued to grow. Quietly. With every dollar Travis once hoarded now helping someone claw back from whatever whole life had thrown them into. People started leaving notes. No names. Just gratitude. One read. You don't know me, but you saved my life. I left him. I'm free. Thank you. Another. They froze my paychecks. I couldn't feed my kids. You made sure they didn't go hungry. And the one that got me most. I used to think good men didn't exist. Then I walked into your garage. I keep those letters in a drawer by my desk. And sometimes when the doubt creeps in, when I wonder if it was all worth it, I pull one out and read. And I remember what Lauren once said, not knowing it would stick with me forever. You'll never be enough unless you have more. And now I know more doesn't mean money. More means meaning. Purpose. Peace. I lost her that night. But I found myself. And I wouldn't trade that for all the wine, candlelight, or fake forgiveness in the world. So if you're out there, standing at the edge of your own ruin, wondering if it's worth it to rebuild, here's what I'll tell you. Let the liars fall. Let the fire burn cold. And when the smoke clears, build something better in the ashes. Because you can. I did. And that's the sweetest revenge of all.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.